recently in meetings and also with Dr. McGrath, but we need to refocus here on the high school and put all the people together that need to talk about what resources do we need to put in there and what do we need to change. So I'm hopeful that we'll be doing it, for September.
Well, quite frankly, with a cut of 8 special education teachers at the high school, that's going to be pretty much impossible to do.
The dialogue needs to occur. That recommendation has been brought forward by Dr. Sharkey. I think that conversation has to occur between Dr. Sharkey and the faculty, and the parents, and all. And I hope that dialogue will continue to go. The school committee set the policy. We're not special education people, but I think it's an area that I think we need to focus and put resources. And I frankly will support that.
Would you like to comment on the
alternative?
Obviously,
I'm not familiar with the specific situation. I always take it back up to the pressures and the political work we need to do to educate people on the things, because people are busy. They send their kids to school. They think they're getting a good education, and they are. We're seeing. I keep talking about the whack-a-mole game. We're trying to push stuff around when there's not enough to go around, and stuff pops out, and we get rid of a program that we shouldn't get rid of. People need to understand that, and they need to hear it. They need to hear it from you. They need to hear it from us, and continuing to drive that. So people say, well, that's really not so good. Maybe the schools are having more challenges than we think. I honestly don't think that people are as aware of some of the pressures and the stuff that happens inside the schools. They just look at the big number, and they go, the schools are getting a lot of money. Any organization that's getting $60+ million ought to be able to run on that. Well, that's not true, but that's how they feel, and we got to keep talking about it.
Do I have time for another question?
Yeah, I think we can do it.
The high school started conducting the NEASC this year, and we're looking at it again next year. I guess a question I have is, what is the cost of that? And given the fact of looking at what's been proposed as far as the cuts that are going to take place at the high school, it would look to me as if at the end of the NEASC study that the high school would lose its accreditation. We can only look one town to the north to find out what happens: new school, no teachers, and loss of accreditation. So what kind of effects is that going to play for the high school, for the Andover school system, and what is the cost of NEASC? And if we already know that we're going to, that we most likely would lose our accreditation, what does that mean for the school system?
Aside from Thank you, Brian. Aside from the cost, I'll have Donald comment on that first and come to you.
Yeah, several of the students at the high school and the student government brought this to my attention, and I think, if we're not accredited, I don't know exactly, what that means as far as what happens to kids coming out of the school or to the school itself. But clearly that's another crack in the system. Even if we do get accredited, the fact that it's in question and that there are concerns from NEASC about that, says to me, we got to start talking about this. People need to understand that if Andover's at risk of losing its accreditation, then something's going on here, and we ought to pay attention. And that's kind of my question as I've talked to people, is what's it going to take for people to sort of all of a sudden go, oh, wait a second, there's something that's not quite right here. That's all.
Okay. In terms of the budget dollars, I'm not sure the exact number, 25,000 somewhere. That might not be exactly right. I have to go back and actually look at the budget. But in terms of the NEASC, what I know about the NEASC process is what Dr. Sharkey has presented in a public meeting at the school committee. I have not heard any concern about the accreditation at the high school not being continued beyond that. I understand it is a period of self-study and reflection in terms of how the school is managed, the initiatives, where it's going. And he presented, Dr. Sharkey, as you know, had been very involved with NEASC over his career. And Ms. Robb is actually off at a review at one of the high schools. I think she just came back last night and participating in that. And I know she's on the the faculty committee here on that group. So I'm just hopeful that it'll be a very positive opportunity for us to, learn and look at the high school. And I have every expectation that, we will receive accreditation. Again, I've not heard any concern that we would not.
Okay. I'm just going to wrap up with one.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
You mentioned that there were teachers here from the high school, from the middle school, and the elementary school. Have we received, and we may have, but have we received questions from elementary teachers or middle school teachers, or has it been all high school teachers?
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't been keeping track. Well, I have been keeping track. Are there any elementary school teachers that would like to ask a question, or a middle school teacher in the audience? I can see some elementary people.
But if I'm correct, I think every person that's asked has been a high school teacher. So, we do have a
I can
system.
check that.
High school is a piece of our,
Right.
one component, 1,800 of, over, 6,200 students. So roughly 40%. So it would be interesting to hear questions from, teachers that represent, 2,400 elementary students and, another 1,800 or 1,600, middle school students.
Sure, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but certainly I think probably there's a great concern, especially with regards to the NEASC, with regards to the cuts in special ed that many people experience today. But that's speculation as to why people would not want to get up on television and speak publicly is, their own concern, of course, and they may be other factors, but I can only speculate to that. But what my
It just from this, for myself as a school committee member, I mean, it would be helpful, as we go along, to include. The questions are great. It's a good opportunity, but it would be good to hear from the entire faculty and
sure
the
would,
school
yeah.
system, and so we can understand, what are some of the struggles that the teachers at elementary, middle school are facing. What are some of their concerns? Because we don't always get that firsthand.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the school committee, it's filtered through other people by the time it gets to us. So this is a great opportunity, for a forum, and
It is.
maybe we can do, different things with, multiple members of the future school committee or whatever, because it's a great opportunity to
It is.
have some dialogue.
I'm
And
glad
so-
that, and before I end with the last question, I'd just like to extend my appreciation in both of you accepting. In the 10 years that I've been here, I can't remember this happening. I know that it had happened prior to that. The last question, the final question, deals with exactly what we were talking about, coming together and speaking, especially in a forum such as this one. And collaboration between the faculty and the school committee is something that is on my mind and on many people's minds at any level of service here in the schools. And there are a couple of experiences within the last year or two that strike me as opportunities for collaboration. The first one being the superintendent search, which the association offered to pay for site visits. And that is basically sending teachers to the sites of possible candidates to help interview those candidates or participate in that process. And we unfortunately didn't get permission for that or granted that request, and instead the Massachusetts Association of School Committees was employed by our school committee to conduct the search at a fee of approximately $8,000. The second opportunity that comes to mind would be the Strategic Planning Committee, which had no faculty representation on it, and this was again outsourced to the Mass Association of School Committees for an approximately $20,000 fee. And then the final element is about $500,000 in litigation that the association sometimes thinks is unnecessary if we can head off disputes between management and the association prior to litigation at the Labor Relations Board. So my question, and I'm going to go to Mr. Gottfried first, even though he answered first last time, and give Mr. Forg the last word on this, is how are you going to work better to collaborate with teachers if you are elected to the school committee and work with the very talented faculty here? And Mr. Forg, how are you going to work better with collaborating with teachers and faculty if you continue to be on the school committee?
So I don't know specifically why those decisions were made. It does concern me, as I've talked to teachers and principals, administrators in the schools. And from what I've heard here today, the teachers aren't feeling very valued or respected, and that concerns me, right? That's a morale. I mean, people are human, so if you're feeling that way and you go in to teach my kids or Mr. Forg's kids or the kids at the high school here, there could be an impact. We all like to think that we can separate those things, but stuff happens. So it concerns me. The way I look at it from where I sit now, I know it will change over time, is I want to have more of those discussions and understand, on both sides what those feelings are, understand what was going on from the school side, from the school committee side, and then what was going on with the teachers. And I do believe we need to bridge that gap. We do need to advocate. There's a hierarchy, I think, of who the school committee should be advocating for, but amongst those that we should be advocating for are the teachers. We need to understand the concerns, because if we don't, it's foolish, because it'll hurt our kids, right?
Okay. Mr. Ford.
Sure. In terms of the collaboration, I would love to see greater collaboration, not just among the school committee and the faculty, but the school committee, the leadership team, and the faculty all together. This is a very interesting dialogue that's occurred here this afternoon. It's been civil. It's been interesting. Good questions. Maybe this is a beginning of something that we can continue to do. And we're going to always have to agree to disagree. There's going to be times that we're always just going to have different positions. But what we have to find is where there are middle grounds that we can work together and begin to build a trust that hasn't existed for a long time. The comment about the strategic plan not having faculty representation is not accurate. There was faculty representation on the steering committee of that group. I think there may have been representation on the, and I'm not sure of this, on the subcommittee that was looking at technology issues, but I know the steering committee had faculty. I can't tell you the name of that person. Annie Gilbert could tell you immediately. She was on the steering committee for that. So it did have faculty representation. So putting out accurate information is helpful.
Okay, just a point of clarification though. Was there a member of the faculty on the committee that wrote the strategic plan?
Yes.
Can you name who that was?
No, Annie Good. Annie was on that subcommittee. It's called the strategic plan. It was the I forget, but basically it was the strategic planning committee. The proper name of it.
Okay.
It evades me, but yes, there was faculty representation on that. And
I'm going to have to dispute
came out of
that.
either Wood Hill or High Plain, but I can certainly get the name of it for you, because I believe that comment was made at one time when that person was present. Annie mentioned that to me and said, I was on that steering committee. I'm sorry. It was called the. There was a request made by Dr. Nicholson for faculty representation. Several people, responded, and there was at least one. So we should just get this clarified, and we can do that easily through Dr. Nicholson's office. Sure. So we're dealing with data.
Right.
And I know you have a different opinion, and I respect that.
And I'm just going to clarify where my information was coming from. The gentleman who ran the strategic plan creation from the Mass Association of School Committee came and asked me what I had thought about it, and I told him we needed to have somebody on that committee, and he said, no dice.
Okay. Let me make a correction there as well.